I mean, these conversations were nut job conversations 20 years ago when we were graduating college. Like, I
Absolutely.
want to get paid to be me.
Okay, okay.
They'd be like, shut up and go back to work.
Bro, just be quiet and hermit for a little bit, you know? I mean,
Right.
yeah, I
And
mean,
so we're at this ridiculously cool point in history where we can do that, and we can find our people, and we can build a community. And even just creating this video and creating this series with you is another chance for us to build community and us to hang out and talk and, you know, find out where we're at and help the viewers kind of say, hey, it's not that bad out here. You know, like, yeah, it's a little scary. And you can even go to the extreme of what you were saying before, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm scared of the hate and people are going to think I'm stupid or weird or whatever. Um, there's the other side of that where you're afraid of success, right? Where it's like,
totally.
well, I don't want all the attention, or it's like you assume you're going to be huge. It's like, well, I think that's just too much for me. Like I don't necessarily need new friends, or I don't need to build community, or I don't want the money, or whatever it is. But they're all excuses, right? If your desire is to really use these platforms and be a content creator, um, you know, at some point you got to get over it. And the best way to do that is just to do it, like we were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the thing with the new technologies is there's so many people, so many young people that adapt to the technology early and sort of take it over. And those are the big, like, hey, Mr. Beast or, whoever, and, these kids that are like opening presents and making $30 million a year on YouTube. And you're like, what in the absolute F is going on in our society? Like, just doesn't, it doesn't even make any sense. But I think it's also an opportunity for people that have lived some of life and worked and had a different, a number of different experiences to say, hey, like, here's the deal. Like, we can kind of add some color to what's going on in the world, in the marketplace. And, other people have those questions and maybe are too afraid to voice them at their corporate meetings or whatever, and you go, hey, like we're having that discussion, and it's a different group of people rather than streaming Fortnite.
Like, this is a unique period in history where you can monetize a
Right,
non-product. Like you are the product. Yeah. Like
right.
you're the product. And so it's not like you have a product to sell and all these people are like, "Man, we love your product. It's amazing." Like, they're listening to you and you're entertaining, right? Like a lot of the YouTubers I follow, they're either like relevant news, like they're entertaining, they're giving me the latest news on what's going on in an entertaining way. Like you're saying, super interesting people that I'm like, this guy is just fascinating
Yep,
stories, and like the way he looks at the world is
yep,
really interesting. Or very like task oriented. Like, I need to learn how to do marketing. I need to learn how to
right.
shoot on this camera. I need to learn how to do something, right? Or I'm learning, high performance or whatever it is, right? So those are kind of the categories. And if you're going for, building a brand around your perspective and your stories and yourself, it is very hard. I mean, this conversation even is challenging us to talk it out, right? And I hope it's helpful for people to hear the formation of how we're thinking
100%.
about it, because it'll change over
Exactly. And
time,
we're not
right? Like,
dialed. Yeah.
as we go, yeah, we don't
Yep.
have all this figured out, right? Like, we're trying to figure this out. And there's going to be things that I tell you, or that I ask you to do, that I believe is going to help the channel, that you're going to try and just be like, that didn't work in reality in 2022, right? Or you might say, I couldn't do it for some weird reason. Like, you wanted me to do this, and like, that's just not
Yeah,
me,
I
or I
chafed at
can't,
it,
right?
whatever.
Right? Or
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, even tonight, right? Like, I wasn't sure we were going to be able to get on and do this, right? Because it's like, hey, it's late, we're busy, we got kids, we got work tomorrow, like all this stuff. And it's easy in our culture to flake on
100%.
stuff. It's like, oh, that's too hard. Like, I'm just going to not discipline myself, because it's an option to just
Yep.
not be disciplined. But if you can actually be disciplined, you get the results that you want to see, and it's like magic.
Personal brand is sort of like being a college professor. Like you then,
How
once
so?
you get to be a college professor, you now have a job for life once you have tenure, and then you get to just
True.
put your spin on whatever it is you teach, which is
Yeah.
sort of, I mean, I had the opportunity to teach college business courses during the pandemic, and so that's like one of the things where you're just like, I've had all these business experiences, and now I have these college students that are reading a book and regurgitating the dumbest answers. It's like, that's what the book says, and you're like, but that doesn't even like, that doesn't resonate at all. When like no CEO gives a hoot about that. Like they want to know X, Y, and Z, and it's not a book thing; it's a life thing. And
Right.
you don't know that until you've had that
Yeah.
experience. And so I think that was really interesting, being a professor, grading papers, teaching out of a book. And you go, man, like, I just really want to teach you kids like what I learned in after college, because I passed all the classes in college, and it didn't help me. I mean, I got a job with a top company, but it didn't help me in that job.
It's so funny. Like, I have a story. So we both went to UNC Chapel
Go
Hill,
Heels.
and I I signed up for karate, right? Like for PE, because I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll sign up for karate. And it literally was called karate, like the PE class. And I'm like, sweet, I'm gonna learn karate. And we go in there, and it's like me and like 20 girls.
No, just self defense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they thought it was cool too, right? So I'm sitting in there. The guy comes out, and he's like this like ripped, when I looked down, I'm like, man, he's a wrestler, right?
So are you.
And he comes out, and he's like, all right, guys and girls, this is the plan. Like, I know this is a karate class, but like nobody's doing karate on the street. Like,
Nuh-uh.
this doesn't work. So let me actually show you like real fighting. He's like, I'm a
Nuh-uh.
UFC fighter. I'm a mixed martial arts artist, and like I'll show you how to really fight and win. Is everybody cool on the down low if I just teach you like MMA instead of karate? And I mean, obviously everyone was like, H to the yes, like that's awesome. And because I was like one of the only dudes in the class, there was a few other dudes, but like
Yeah.
I was the guinea pig. So I was the dude that he
Nuh-uh.
did all the moves on to show everybody. So I got real good real fast.
Yeah.
But it's that same concept of like the teacher coming in saying, this doesn't even work. Like, let me show you the real things. And I think that's another purpose of me wanting to even do this series, because we are going to be putting to the test all the things that all these gurus and influencers say like you
100%.
should do. Okay,
Let's
do
try
it.
it.
Let's try it, and let's
Yeah.
see
We're going to
what
give it
it
6
does.
months and we'll see. We'll give it our best shot and we'll
Yeah.
see if it works.
And just so everybody knows, like I'm starting from scratch too. Like, the only real video I've posted to my channel is a sci-fi short film, my first narrative sci-fi short film, Phase 6, that I shot years and years ago. Won some awards for, but that was it. So I have like my little audience is like people that are interested
Yeah.
in sci-fi, thinking like I'm gonna pump out sci-fi videos, but they're
Yeah.
hard as junk to do.
80,000 views though, bud. You
So
crushed it.
I'm probably gonna get well, but what kind
Yeah.
of content
I mean, it wasn't
does a sci-fi
continuous, but yeah, I
filmmaker
mean,
need?
but still you have like a video that you put out that had a bunch of videos or a bunch of views. Like, that's impressive. I mean,
Well, thanks. But now it's like, what next, right? So now it's like, So I'm gonna, I'm the CEO of Wave, which is an audio marketing platform for podcasters and musicians and speakers. Um, I I love filmmaking and music and content creation and marketing and all this stuff. So I am going to make an attempt at this. I know I have a podcast which was kind of chronicling my journey as a content creator, filmmaker. So, it'll be interesting to see, what grows, what doesn't grow, what works, what doesn't work. But I'm in the same boat as you. Like, we're both like, okay, let's be vulnerable. Let's just, bite the bullet and make sure we just get junk out. Obviously, we're doing this because we want to do this every week starting in July
Right.
for 6 months, 2022. So this is, it's June 30th right now.
Right.
We had to get this in, right? So
Totally.
we can launch this tomorrow. What is your video going to be about? Like, what can listeners and viewers look forward to?
Ooh. All right. So you're putting me on the
From
spot.
Carter.
You're putting me on the spot. So I'm going to tell you right now, my new series is going to be about perspectives. And
Okay.
that has sort of coalesced since the conference. And I think that's a way that I can boil things down to reach people that say, hey, like, we all look at things differently. And I will say, as like a snippet, I was doing dinner by myself one night at the conference, and so I just went to this bar, sat at the bar and ordered a burger, and just happened to talk to this person, and happened to be from the East Coast, and we were talking, and we view things differently. Excuse me. And but it was a really thoughtful conversation. But we have different perspectives on the way we look at the same situation. And so we can look at something and say, well, this is obviously the answer. And then somebody can look at it from, 90-degree angle. All those perspectives aren't lies. They're all truth. They're all what that person saw. And I think too often when we get into conversations, I mean, Roe versus Wade was the big one while we were in Boise, and that came out, and overturning that, and people were going crazy, and we got caught up in that parade or demonstration or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, everybody's perspective is valid. It's just, how does that play into life?
So why should I care about that?
You shouldn't at all. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to force you to care. Like, I really don't care. At this point, my answer will always be the same. Like, you don't have to care. I don't care. Like, I'm not here to grab I'm like, this isn't me. Like, I'm not a business person where I'm like, oh my God, I have to grab this group of people, and I have to grab a certain percentage of this people. Like, I have an experience, and if you have had a similar experience, great. If you haven't, so like and I can't say this, so I'm actually still trying to figure this out. I've got YouTube guidelines up on my thing, but so is the mathematical distribution of a-holes. I'm not real sure, because what I think is really funny about that and true is that I've worked in any number of all sorts of businesses, financial advising, accounting, landscape maintenance, night shift, warehouse work, whatever, youth ministry. But there are buttholes in every one of those, every single one of them. And so I thought in my mind when I was 22, when I graduate, that I would find an area of business where there were just like really good people, and it was just nothing but good people, and I would just somehow fit in, and things would just be easy, and I wouldn't have any problems, and that was just like my place. And for my 20s, I just figured like I hadn't found that place. Like there just seemed to be all these buttholes, like in all these different, areas of work, and I just thought I would quit and I would move on, and I would quit and I would move on. I'd get a new job and I would quit, and I was just like, man, there's so many buttholes. Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't get it. And
then you find the perfect job being a YouTuber, and they're in your comments.
And then the buttholes are in the comments. Exactly. Like they're everywhere. And so it was really funny when I like look.
Well, everyone has one, Carter.
So that was exactly, so that was my thought, was that maybe my video on the mathematical distribution of a-holes, as I'm trying to figure out what to call them so that YouTube will still monetize it, is put a quote up and then attribute it to like Socrates or Aristotle, but it's not really. It's, opinions or perspectives are like buttholes. Everybody has one. Like nobody cares. And it's not an Aristotle or a Socrates. Like it's not deep. It's just the lay of the land. And it seems silly talking about it, but at the same time, I think a lot of people probably have the same view that I had 20 years ago, is that like, oh, like I just haven't found my place because I ran into a roadblock or an obstacle or a butthole or whatever the situation is, and so I must leave that and go somewhere else. And so I'm just looking back at life and going, hey, like perspective, like, is that
right? But there's some entertainment value in that.
100%.
Right? So, like, where did you land for your show? Where did you land on the mix between working in comedy and like humor?
And just realism is, I talked to some people at the conference, and I think one of the girls had a really good take on it, is that you just do you, and if you're funny, it will just naturally come out. And so it's not trying to be comedic. If it is funny, right, it's funny. If you find it funny, great. If you don't find it funny, it wasn't meant to be funny. And then right, and then we just move on. And so I think that kind of freed me up to just go back to producing and creating content and not worrying about whether or not it was funny or it was, was it perfect for that group of people? Because no matter how much you try to tailor your talk or who you are or whatever to your target audience, somebody may just stumble across it, and it may just touch them and reach them in some way that you had no idea. So it's just outside of your control. And I think that's where I have to let go of my desire for perfection and just say, hey, like here are my experiences. Here's my perspective. Here's the channel. I hope you like it. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just so interesting to look at the world and have these conversations and see, the divisive nature of politics and the news. And, everybody says, okay, pick your target market and then just go after them. And it's like, I watch comedians, and a lot of comedians are saying, like, sometimes I'm on the left and sometimes I'm on the right, and like, why can't I just be free and be me? And they're joking, but they're not joking. They're actually honest. And I think that's a perspective that is lacking in the marketplace. And so if we had to get businessy, I would say that's probably one of my target markets, is like, hey, like I want to bring a perspective and different perspectives and say, hey, like I know there are a lot of people, because I can have conversations with random people 2,500 miles away from my home and connect on, we're different, but we still agree with more things than the media would like us to believe.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it right there. I think that's the core of your why on your channel.
Yeah.
Just to help you reflect back on that. I think it's we don't have to be confined by the labels of the divisive nature of our society. we can actually be ourselves with our own unique perspectives and still love each other and still get
There you
along
go.
and still have an intelligent conversation. I think if you were to nail it, boil it down, that's what you're trying to get at. Because through that, you'll have really interesting conversations from different perspectives, with your spin on it, and it'll be interesting content. It'll be entertaining content. So let's wrap this up. So good first session. I think we're on the right track. You have an idea for your show.
Yep.
You're going to try to put out the first one tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to post this tomorrow. This is a side project on the side
Totally.
of the side. And so I have some time here at, midnight or whatever, whenever we're recording this.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we're going to start our journey. We're going to check in once a week. I think the lesson I'll leave you with for this week is carve out the time, right? I think that's the hardest thing for you, is to find that kind of sacred time where this is creator time.
Yep.
And map out how much time you think you need per video from A to Z, the planning, the researching, the shooting, the editing, the publishing, the optimizing, like the thumbnails, like everything. And just map out a guess and map out that time. It doesn't have to be in one chunk, right? Like you can map that out for an hour a day, throughout the week, 2 hours here, 3 hours there, half hour here, but mark it on your calendar and then set reminders on your phone that give you a little ding that's like a special sound that gets you primed that this is the time I'm going into this special time that's marked off. And then you got to put the dog away. You got to tell your wife. You got to have a conversation and really protect that time, because you are committing to this and you're going to be disciplined and you're going to see fruit from it. Little gift, if you watch this long and this far, is Carter and I recorded an entire season of podcasts and did not publish them.
It's true. Back when Bitcoin was like not very much,
$300.
and we were like, if we had $1,000, we would invest it, but we don't have $1,000 because we were broke. And then we were like, dang, we should have taken out a loan from the bank. We'd have been millionaires.
Oh, the days.
Those are, man.
That's true, because actually Bitcoin, yeah. So we recorded that season of podcasts before Ethereum even came out.
When I was in Charleston, 2016?
Yeah, I think so. Like Ethereum was just about to come out, and I was like, yeah, this new next coin coming out by Vitalik Buterin, and I was like, he's this young smart dude, and you were like, oh, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, dude, I've been following Bitcoin forever. Like, but I mean, we weren't even talking about buying it back then, were we? Like,
because we didn't have the money.